Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Condor Chat put on by Ventana Wildlife Society. I'm Kelly Sorenson, the Executive Director, and I'm super excited. I was looking back and thinking how long we've been doing this, and we started in spring of 2020. So this is pretty exciting, going on all these years, nonstop, every month, the last Thursday of the month, with some exceptions. And it's just a great place for all of you living abroad, living wherever you are, to hear directly from the field biologists and our partners who are working directly with condors in the wild so that we can recover them once and for all. And I think a big theme for today's meeting is going to be on our work to vaccinate the wild flock against, I should say, avian influenza, and we have some really great progress on that. It's been a year now since we first heard of the outbreak in Arizona, and our hearts still go out to our partners at the Peregrine Fund and National Park Service out there for losing so many birds. And we've been having many sleepless nights over this last 12 months, worried about the birds not having protection. And we now are moving forward with vaccinating the wild flocks. So that's the big thing for me, and I'm sure everyone else here on the team. And that's a lot about what we'll talk about today. But let me turn it over to Joe Burnett, our senior wildlife biologist.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I'm Joe Burnett, Condor Program Manager here at Ventana Wildlife Society. As Kelly pointed out, yeah, it's been 4 years. That's amazing. Right before COVID that we started these, and man, they've been a really great way for us to communicate with everyone, and we're just glad you folks keep joining us. So yeah, we got a lot to update today. I am joined by the crew. I have Darren and Danaé on one of the thumbnail boxes. There they are waving. Two of our full-time biologists out there almost every day, following the birds around. Today we don't have Kara Fadden with us. She has some well-earned, well-deserved days off. But yeah, everybody's been working hard. We've had a lot going on. And of course, we have Mike Stake with us, our biologist and non-lead program manager. Always good to have you, Mike. And yeah, without further ado, we got a pretty full agenda today. I'm going to start with some project updates, just what's been happening over the last month, and then we'll get into where we are with the HPAI vaccinations. We have some exciting news there. We also have an update on Wild Bill. We had some unexpected stuff happen there, but we'll tell you more in a second. And of course, how the San Simeon rookies are doing. We've been waiting to see if they're going to start branching out, so we'll have some updates there. Of course, how the whole population in Central California is doing. And then the most exciting part of our update, we're going to get into the 2024 nesting status of all the pairs. And we are going to be joined today by special guest biologist Kaitlin Lopez at Pinnacles National Park. We've had a ton of nesting activity over there this year. So we thought it made a lot of sense to have Kaitlin come over and help us with that part of the update. She's got some incredible photos to share. So we are super excited for that portion of the update. Let's get into the meat of it here. Got some great staff photos. Surprised Mike there a little bit with that. Mike had his birthday this month, so we had to give him a special shout out. And then there he is. All right, Mike, I like it. With his fedora. And of course, some action shots there on the right. That kind of as a prelude to what we're going to talk a lot about this update. Again on the SPCA HPAI vaccination front. Yeah, we still have our. I want to give a shout out to Evan, our GIS specialist, and Matt. He's actually given us another great map for today's talk. And of course, Tim Huntington. One of our longtime volunteers and our database designer, Calco Central, which is, really critical to the whole program now and tracking all the data we collect on these birds. And of course, we're going to talk more about Amy Wells, our veterinarian advisor. She's been an amazing help for the last, well, actually for a long time, but in particular the last month or so. And of course, we can't start this talk without talking about all what's been all over the news, the highway slip out in Big Sur. This has obviously had an impact on our Big Sur operation. We had another monumental winter, lots of big rains. And with that, there always comes the risk of the road giving out. And that's what happened here. I think this Caltrans photos really captures it best. So what this has created is a convoy situation that we can only go down at certain times of the day, once in the morning, once in the late afternoon. And so this is definitely cramped our ability to run our normal operations. But fortunately, you know, like we actually go through this every few years. We have something happening with the highway. And over the years, we've learned how to work around it and keep up with the birds. And we've been able to maintain Big Sur operations, maintain good monitoring of the Big Sur flock and those nests. It's definitely been challenging. So big shout out to the crew for big time stepping up and working around and adjusting their schedules just to make it all work. And yeah, so it's definitely been a little bit of a kink in our plans, but we've found a way to get around it. And yeah, hopefully this is going to go. We're hoping by the end of the month they have this to a stoplight, 1-lane stoplight that will make operations much easier. And for folks visiting Big Sur wanting to come see condors and contribute to the local businesses down there, which are hurting right now, that would be a great way to get through. So yeah, we're hoping that happens sooner than later. The estimate right now is by Memorial Day. So that will open up all the Big Sur businesses again. So our hearts are definitely going out to them. They've definitely been hit hard by this road slip. So, and of all things, we get snow in April. You know, everyone says April showers, but they brought snow showers to our flock. And this photo is off one of our trail cameras that we leave up there. And you can see the birds are pretty much unfazed by the snow. They've got their heads all tucked in, but they're doing what they do. They're still getting food and making their way around. You know, rain or shine, these birds, rain, snow or shine, these birds know what to do and know how to endure. So yeah, it just speaks to their resiliency. As people always ask, how do condors do in snow? Well, here you go. So they do quite fine. HPAI update. Yeah, so we our vaccination status, we have 14 of the 100 birds vaccinated in Central California. We're going to plan to vaccinate 4 to 8 juvenile and subadults per month. Right now we're set up to do 4, but after this next round, we're gonna double our capacity. And again, it's a 21-day vaccination cycle with a 2 to 3 day to 1 week follow-up period. So the birds are basically have to be held in captivity for just under a month. And of course, to do that, you have to put them in temporary holding pens and make them comfortable and put them in the best possible scenario you can, considering what you're trying to do. It's not ideal, but again, protecting them against HPAI is definitely a priority. So it's a small chunk of time to provide them really critical protection. And again, because of nest season, we're not messing with adults. We're leaving the adults alone to stick to nesting. We're focusing on the younger half of the flock right now. And if we did happen to catch an adult and we're able to do it, we would at least give them a single dose. So you were estimating the vaccinations will take max probably 2 years, but we're hoping to obviously wrap this up in a year and a half. Again, 100 birds, we're at 14 now. And the good news is we just trapped our first 4 birds and brought them over to SPCA and began vaccinations last week. They'll receive their second doses in early May. But now, once these birds are vaxxed, we're going to be up to, we're going to have 18 of the 100 condors vaccinated. So we're already making a big chunk. We're almost to 20% of the flock. So that's pretty exciting. Still lots of work to do there. It's a collaborative thing. We really work closely with Pinnacles National Park. They are trapping the birds that right now, because of our situation with Big Sur and difficulty getting in and out of Big Sur, that's where our collaboration is so important. So big shout out to Pinnacles for catching the first round of birds, and of course SPCA for giving us the wonderful spot to do this. Again, the pens, we did a lot of preparation. We had our volunteers come help. Pinnacles staff came help. VWS staff came and helped. It took a village for sure to put these pens up. And of course, we got the funding to purchase these pens. So everything came together. It's taken a little bit longer than, the approval of the sites through USDA took a little bit longer. But again, we just stuck with it, and now we're here, and now this is our first photos of the birds in the pens, and they're working out very well. Much to our, we're always a little cautious when we build new pens just to make sure they're safe. But we went to great lengths to make sure they were buttoned up nicely, and so we're pretty excited to see them, the birds, so comfortable inside them.
Joe, any idea how long the vaccines will be effective in protection?
We don't know yet, but it's similar to West Nile. We'll probably give the birds boosters whenever we have them in hand into the future, until we know more about, until there might be a new vaccine developed in between over the years. But for now, it'd be probably a booster each year, I'm guessing. But yeah, it's so new. I mean, the veterinarians and USDA are we're right in the middle of it. But if it's the same as West Nile, I would assume that it's going to be at least annually. We'll give them a booster. And this is some of the monitoring we're doing. It's remote because obviously we like to keep the birds quiet. That's why the SPCA site's so great. It's very quiet, very private, which is what we want these birds to be, low stress while they're pulled out of the wild and going through these vaccinations. And we have these cellular trail cameras set up that we can monitor around the clock. And they've been really helpful. Like right here, you can see 1089 Cozy in the pen. We can see him sitting here on his perch. And then, we have other photos, just different angles of the birds hanging out. And it just gives us, a good idea of what's going on and making sure they're feeding, and we're not seeing any potential issues. We don't anticipate any, but, anytime you build new pens, you just want to be sure. So yeah, they're being watched and monitored very well. And even have had some cool visitors. We had a wild turkey come through. I don't know if he saw the condors from a distance and said, hey, they kind of look like me, and then figured out they weren't. This is one of our new visitors, and didn't stick around, just kind of came through and checked it out and moved along. But yeah, we had a coyote cruise through, didn't stick around too long and moved on. Yeah, again, the pens are built to protect the birds not only, from HPAI, getting infected from HPAI, but they're predator proof. These pens are built to hold tigers and grizzly bears. So they're very, very strong. So that's why we chose the pens we did. So yeah, we thought it was cool to see some of the wildlife coming in to check out, see who the new guys in town were. And of course, we want to recognize Amy Wells, who has been helping us out for years. She supports us as a veterinarian advisor, but she does just far and above. She comes out and volunteers. She actually helped us build the pens. I mean, obviously she's a veterinarian, but she comes out and does the dirty work too. And so just a big shout out. We couldn't have done this without Amy. And she was there to deliver the vaccines last week. And again, we're all just in awe of her, everything she does. So can't say enough. Darren and Danaé, if you want to add anything, but yeah, I mean, Amy's just been amazing. And we have another great video made by Meredith Evans, our communications director. She's been hard at work making these awesome shorts that she asks all of us to participate in. Sometimes we're reluctant, but she'll get us to speak and do all, tell the story of what's happening, which obviously is really important. So this is shot on location at the SPCA during the vaccinations. So it's kind of a cool look behind the scenes of what it's like to be there actually on site. So without further ado, I'm going to hit play. Everyone, we're here at SPCA today, a big day for us. We're going to vaccinate the first 4 wild birds. They were caught at Pinnacles just a few days ago, and now we have them staged here. We're getting ready to vaccinate them for HPAI, and we have Amy Wells here, Dr. Amy Wells, that's going to deliver the vaccines. We also have our partner SPCA, Rosanna, who's come to join us. So this is the start of the vaccinations for the entire wild flock. These 4 will get their first vaccination today. 21 days later, they'll get their second, and they will reside here in these pens behind me while they're here at their luxurious stay at the SPCA. Now we wait 21 days for their second dose and then release back to the wild. Thanks to SPCA, to Amy Wells, to all the crews for all the awesome hard work. Until then, thanks everybody. Awesome. Great job, Meredith. Yeah, and again, thank you to Pinnacles. Thank you to SPCA. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, USDA, it takes a village for sure. So big thank you all around. 1085, I think, Danaé, this would be a good time for you to jump in. Danaé was part of this development that happened while we were doing the vaccinations, and Danaé was able to help usher 1085 up to Oakland Zoo.
Yeah, that's right. So when Pinnacles trapped 1085, they drew some blood when he was first trapped. And once we got the results back from the lab for that blood, we saw that his blood level was slightly elevated. It wasn't super high, but it was definitely over the threshold for where we would treat a bird. And so once we knew that, he probably needed to get that taken care of first. So I drove him up to Oakland Zoo, and their team is super awesome, super skilled, very talented people up there. They did a really awesome intake exam for him, which is what you can see in those photos on the left there. He's getting an X-ray or a radiograph, and that was to determine if he had any lead fragments still in his system, so in his crop or any part of his GI tract. Because obviously if he did have lead in his system, that lead level would just keep going up and up until that lead gets out of his system. So if he did, they would want to take it out first, but luckily he did not have any fragments in his system, which is awesome. So that means that his lead level is probably naturally coming down a little bit on its own, but also the vets there at Oakland Zoo are gonna do some chelation treatment on him to help that lead level continue to come down. And then they'll also administer his second dose of the HPAI vaccination once he's completely free of lead poisoning and back to full health.
Yeah, this is something we always knew was a risk when we pull birds in for these vaccinations, that they might have these other issues going on. So great job, Danaé, getting him up to the good hands of the Oakland Zoo. They've been great over the years of treating all our birds, whether it be lead or an injury, or they're also going to be assisting with HPAI vaccinations. They're in the process of, like I said earlier, 2 of our pens are going to go up to support their setup up there, and they're going to have quarantine pens specifically for HPAI and helping out not only for birds that potentially have HPAI, but in the interim, they could actually vaccinate more birds and help us expedite vaccinating the wild flock. So all really good stuff. Yeah, such a great partner. Big shout out. Thank you, Oakland Zoo. All right, San Simeon rookie updates. Is this going to be Darren?
Yeah, I'll take this on. I've been pretty excited about what's been going on with these guys recently. So yeah, happy to share. But yeah, just to remind folks, so we have there are 5 Ventana managed rookies that we released from San Simeon. And we had 5 other birds that we released from there as well, but those are the Pinnacles managed birds. And so we'll focus on the Ventana managed birds here. But yeah, those 5 are 1137 Blue, 1139 Kit, 1141 Willow, and then 1144 Tiger, and 1170 Strix. In the past few months, really, they've been making some pretty awesome movements and really been expanding their range. And so we kind of wanted to share just like some maps that Evan made with you all to show this expansion that they've been doing. So we'll start here. Evan's listed each of the rookies by how much area they've covered and the longest journey that each of them have made. So starting with 1170, that bird really has like stayed pretty close to the San Simeon site, which is kind of an outlier for most of the rookies at this point. But yeah, it's really only traveled in this past month 11 square miles, and the furthest they've been from the San Simeon site is 10 miles. So that bird's still exploring around, but also being pretty smart, just hanging around where there's food. So yeah, I love to see that. Next up is 1137, who's traveled a bit more, traveled 95 square miles in the past month, and made a 6 to 8 mile flight in that time. 1141, now we're really jumping up to has covered 676 square miles in the past month and flew 201 miles from the San Simeon site, which is pretty impressive. And then, yeah, the next bird that's covered the most area, at least. Oh, sorry, Joe, if you could go back for just a sec there.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
But yeah, 1139 covering 719 square miles and then traveling 227 miles total from the San Simeon site, which is the longest distance. And then we've got 1144. We traveled a little less total miles from San Simeon, 193, but did cover more area in 815 miles. And so these maps at the bottom, you can see the area in red, that's the total area that they've covered in the past month. And then the dashed lines, those sort of tracks on there, that's where that's the flights that they've made. So yeah, you can kind of see like the ranks here, 1170, 1137, 1141. And then yeah, on the next page, next slide.
Yeah, and
There we
Darren, before we
got,
jump to that next slide,
oh,
to show how close 1141 got to the Big Sur site up there.
Oh yeah, it's so
corner.
close to it. Yeah, that was really cool to see, and yeah, they're both her and I think 1139 have gotten pretty close. We're almost like basically equal to the like equal latitude to the Big Sur site. So yeah, it's really cool to see. Only a matter of time before we probably catch them on the cams up there. But then yeah, at the bottom here you can see the areas covered by 1139 and 1144, and same deal, the tracks that they've covered with their flights. And then the graph up at the top here, this is just showing, in the past month, each bird's a different color line. And it just kind of shows over the past month how far they got from the release slope on a near daily basis here. So it's kind of cool to see that they're kind of making these flights away from the site, but then they keep coming back. And that's really, we're really stoked to see that, because that tells us they know that San Simeon is like a reliable site for them. It's a solid place for them to spend time with other birds and to get a clean source of food. But it's still cool to see them exploring with and meeting new condors too. So yeah, it's just been really cool to follow them in the past month and really the past few months to see where they've been.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah, this is kind of the time of year we expect them to start spreading their wings a little more. And yeah, the next couple months should be pretty awesome to watch.
Yeah.
So was it 1170 that's the homebody? What's the story there?
I think she just knows she's gonna like that she'll get food there. Like I think she's recognized it as a reliable spot to get food, and so she's just like, why would I leave when
Why would I leave?
And it could be a hierarchy.
Green Condor is there, yeah, exactly.
Could
Yeah.
be a hierarchy thing. Some of the top heavy birds leave and she has the place to herself. Kind of thing.
Yeah. She's pretty spunky too. I've definitely seen her get into some tussles with some other birds, and I remember Maven Isaiah talking a lot about her too. That she was one of their favorites for the passion and enthusiasm she showed when it came to feeding and interacting with other birds.
All right, thanks.
All right, we ready to move on?
Yeah, I
All
think so.
Just checking. All right, population. We're still at 100. Which is great. We have our 2023 wild fledge checks. We still have the 4 that are out moving around. The 2 Big Sur and 2 Pinnacles chicks. And then we have which we just updated on, the rookies. We talked about the 5 Big Sur birds, but the 5 Pinnacle birds are starting to branch out and following as a group, I would say, as a cohort. They're all kind of hanging together still. And then and 2024 chicks and nests. This is something we're going to get into more in our nest update, but we have 1 chick in a nest already this year. So that's pretty darn exciting. And condor deaths so far in 2024, knock on wood, we're at 0. Again, we had 9 back in 2023. We do have 4 missing birds. that, based on the pattern we're seeing, are likely not going to show up again. Obviously, condors can definitely disappear for a month or two and pop back up, but these birds are going on months. So, and actually, yeah, and 1100 is coming up on almost a year. So yeah, it's not looking too good for these guys. And of course, that includes Traveler 171. So that's a bummer, but you know, we're still keeping an eye out. We still track for them. And again, you know, we're just gonna keep our hopes up, but yeah, not looking too great right now. All right, Big Sur nesting.
All right, I can jump in and fill us in on some Big Sur nesting updates. So this is kind of our general overview table here of all the pairs. Those 4 in purple are our active confirmed nests. Important lingo there because there's some potential on this list for some other nests, but these 4 we know for sure are nesting. So I'll dive more into those a little bit later. And then some of the other pairs on this list that I want to point out, 168 and 208, they're a pair that have been together a really long time, and they typically nest every year or try to nest every year, but they just haven't been successful in quite a while. And 208 and 168, we have not seen any nesting behavior this year. So we don't think they're nesting yet, but that doesn't mean they might not try to nest this year. And then a couple that I added onto this list at the bottom there is 470 and 962. They are a new pair that we've seen hanging out together, and 962 like just turned 5 years old a month ago. And so she wasn't really showing a ton of breeding behavior. And so, you know, typically with females, we see them wait usually until 6, 7, 8 years old for their first breeding attempt. So 5 is technically like the earliest that they could breed, but we don't see it happen too often. So we kind of wrote her off early on in the season as like, she's probably not nesting, but we've seen some really interesting behavior recently that leads us to believe that they could be nesting. So we're going to try to confirm that hopefully within the next month or so, and try to establish that incubation pattern with them. So hopefully they're nesting, but we don't have anything confirmed yet. And then same thing with the last on that list, 631, 745, and 970, we think are a potential trio. And similarly, 970, the female in that trio, also just turned 5 years old. So both of these females, if they did nest, that would be awesome. Obviously, more nests is a great thing, but it would be pretty surprising just to have these really, really young females trying to nest as soon as they reach breeding age, especially 970. She still has a lot of black in her face, some of that juvenile plumage that we see still. So she still looks like a very young bird. So it's pretty interesting, but technically, you know, they're of age. They definitely have the ability to do it. So we will see. We're going to look for some more evidence to confirm these 2 potential nests, but hopefully we'll have some more information to report on next time. And then the other wild card pairs on this list, we don't think any of those are nesting. So still just have those 4 nests in purple. And I'll give some more details on those now. So first up is 550 and 652 Ferdinand. Their egg was laid at the end of February, and it was actually expected to hatch yesterday. Kara went out and checked on that nest yesterday. She was able to get through the highway closure convoy situation and check on that nest. And she did see 550 inside the nest cavity. She saw her stand up a little bit and kind of move around, which, you know, could have meant that she was watching an egg hatch, or she could have just been adjusting her position. We're not quite sure. That redwood cavity is very, very difficult to see into. It's a really deep cavity, so we can't actually see the egg or potential chick at this point. But their behavior will kind of clue us in over the coming weeks and months if they do have a chick. We tend to see a pretty distinct switch in behavior pattern where they're spending less time at the nest, but more frequent trips to the nest to bring that chick food. So we will be keeping a close eye out for that with that pair. And then 190 Redwood Queen and 650 Zenith are still actively nesting. Their egg was laid March 10th and should hatch May 5th. So they are still doing a great job keeping track of that egg and keeping it nice and warm. And we are still planning to put a camera in that nest. So more updates on that hopefully very, very soon. But we're working on that video system and trying to get it up and running, but it's a bit of a process, lots of moving parts with these remote nest cameras. So we're still working on that, but hopefully we'll have that cam up in time for that egg to hatch. And then 626 and 729 Ninja, we do think they are still nesting. They're showing a pretty strong incubation pattern still, and their egg is due to hatch today. So hopefully it is hatching as we speak. Unfortunately, that nest is pretty remote. It's not one that we can even access by foot to try to get out and monitor, not even close enough where we could set up a scope and try to look across a giant canyon at it. It's pretty remote. So unfortunately, that one's going to be really hard to confirm until we see a really strong pattern later into the nesting season that would indicate they're caring for a chick. So we'll keep you guys posted on that one. And then lastly, 209 Shadow and 881 Minerva. They're a new pair this year. And they laid, or 881 laid an egg mid-March, and then that egg is expected to hatch May 14th. So again, we're a little ways off from that hatch date, but that is another very, very remote nest that Kara and I attempted to hike out to, and we made it pretty close. We could pick up signals for 209 who was incubating on the nest, but we couldn't actually see the nest, unfortunately. So that's another one that's going to be really tricky to monitor, but we'll definitely do our best to get as much information as we can and keep you guys updated. And then here are just some awesome photos from Redwood Queen and Zenith's nest. I love that photo on the right there. I think that's Zenith 650 peering out of the nest cavity there, looking up at Redwood Queen, who was watching in the tree nearby, making sure that he was incubating correctly. She was keeping a close eye on him. She's a great mom, and I think she's keeping a close eye on Zenith as a new male. You know, she's kind of testing him out, making sure that he is doing everything he's supposed to be. Yes, and he has been a very good dad so far. And then, yeah, just some more photos of, I think that's 650 incubating the egg there. Nice and cozy in that cavity.
Yeah, and so Danaé touched on it. This is our best prospect for nest cam this year, so we're pretty excited, working closely with explore.org. This is a famous nest. This is our most filmed nest. 190, Redwood Queen, 190, she's been using this nest. She's used it 10 times and fledged 6 chicks since 2006. She's one of our most productive females. Obviously, she's not by her choice, but she's had, she had kingpin for a majority of those nestings. And unfortunately, we lost him in 2020 in the Dolan fire. And then she had 477 in Phoenix, and they actually had another nest tree. They actually nested in this one time in 2021. And the egg failed, and then they moved to another tree nearby this one up the ridge, another spot, and they actually fledged a chick. So yeah, we're really hopeful that they can get it. So we're excited to get this going again. This would be because of the road closure and road slip, we were hoping to get the inside camera going again, but with all the delays, Explorer just wasn't able to make it happen. But we're definitely going to be able to do the outside camera, which has actually a pretty amazing view inside of the nest. So it'll really be the next best option, and we'll definitely be able to see a lot of detail. This nest has pretty darn good exposure. So we're excited. So keep your fingers crossed, and we hope to have that up in the next couple weeks ideally before the egg hatches. So yeah, we're excited to have Kaitlin with us. She has been watching nest over there the last few years. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All the way from Pinnacles. This is awesome.
I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if my volume is too loud or too low, just let me know.
No, it's perfect. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Everyone's excited to hear about what's been happening over there this season. It's been pretty darn exciting. Even from our standpoint, it's probably the most nests we've had over there ever. So it's got to be pretty busy, huh?
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. The most exciting nesting season I've seen so far. So yeah, it's a pretty awesome time.
Yeah, and we got some photos here. It looks like you not only do condors, but you're in here with some other birds too. Maybe give us a quick background of like what you've been up to over when you started. And
yeah, I started as an intern for Pinnacles National Park in 2020. Before the Dolan fire, I was there for the Dolan fire and all of the pandemic, and that was honestly the worst time in the condor field. But So I've been at Pinnacles for 3.5 years now, and just monitoring the birds. I love it over here. I also help Gavin, the raptor biologist for the park, with peregrine and prairie falcon surveys, and have helped him with nest entries. So you see me holding a little peregrine falcon
That is an
in the
awesome
Bay
photo.
Area. Yeah, I got to go into a nest with him, and so that's a little peregrine falcon nestling that I got to hold and help process with him.
Very cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we have a little chart here of what's been happening with
Nice.
nesting. So you know these pairs all very well.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, we have some VWS birds in the mix over there, so everyone's excited to hear about that part of it too. But yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, 6 nests, 2 outside of the park. Those are in private property, so we can't access them at all. We just monitor their GPS to see how they're doing, and so far, both of them look great. 317s and 330s might have hatched. We're still unsure with their pattern. Unfortunately, 317's GPS died like a couple weeks ago, and so we can't see the pattern as well with 330s. So we're trying to figure out if they are actually still going to the nest still. But 800 and 747s is supposed to hatch like very soon, I think within the next 5 days or so. So exciting. Second time that 800 will use that nest, and third time for 747. So we're hoping for good things with them outside of the park.
Yeah, we have some of the awesome photos you sent us after this, but yeah, to have 6 is, I think this is the most nest we've had at
Hmm.
Pinnacles.
Yeah, and then the four in the park, we've never had 4 active ones in the park
Which is
before.
amazing. It's amazing there's that much room. So it just goes to show when condors want to get along and nest, they can.
Yeah, yeah, and there's more room. I mean, there's all of the west side of the high peaks, and yeah, there's more room for these condors too. And yeah,
And
we
we
could
always
have
talk
more.
about what a stark contrast it is to the Big Sur coast with the redwoods. And then you go over to Pinnacles and it's like the complete opposite, just big
Yeah.
spires of rock, very dry, very hot. And you go from like
Hmm.
rainforest, temperate rainforest to almost desert, conditions. And I think too, as biologists, when you guys come on the coast, you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. And when we go out there, we're like, oh my God, I can't breathe.
Yeah, I prefer the heat, and it does seem like some of the condors do too,
Oh, I
because
know.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's kind of
726 is
funny.
always over here.
Who is?
726, like she's
Yeah.
never on the coast.
Yeah, we've noticed that too. I think we've noticed our fledglings from redwoods really love Pinnacles. Like they tend to
Hmm.
hang out. They come back sometimes, but it is funny how these birds prefer different areas. And hey, this year the preference is high for Pinnacles, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's
All
been
right, I'm gonna
great.
hit this next. Are you good with this one? I'm gonna hit the next slide.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
These photos. Oh, this is a Tim Huntington photo. He's been getting some great shots. Yeah, his
Hmm.
726.
Yeah, she's the most photographed, I think, of any bird in the high peaks. Like we have a condor email that we get from visitors, and it's always green 26, little stinker, and yeah, their nest is supposed to hatch this week, like within the next day or two. So we're gonna go check on it tomorrow to see if it is hatched or not. We can't see that well into the nest, but we'll try to see by parents' behavior if it has hatched.
Yeah, for folks listening, when you guys go to observe nests, you're just to describe, you're looking through a scope from like a mile away.
Yeah, yeah, pretty far away, so we don't interfere with the parents at all. But yeah,
Yeah, and I would think a challenge in the park there is, you want to protect the nest and people are so curious. So the park keeps that under wraps, right? The locations, obviously.
yeah, we find little bushes and trees that are, yeah, you can't see us from any trails, but we can see you.
Yeah, that's got to be challenging because yeah, Pinnacles is a popular spot.
Hmm.
Yeah, so 747 and 800, they're right around the corner too.
Yeah. 692 and 726. I don't know how much the viewers know about that couple, but she hasn't laid the best eggs, but this year when we checked on it a couple weeks ago now, the end of March, it was viable, it was alive and fertile. So hopefully this is her year. We're hoping finally she'll have an egg and have a nestling, because she's nested, I don't know, like 6 or 7 times, tried to, but we're hoping this is her year.
Yeah, and we've seen that with some females. It takes them a little longer than others. Some hit it right out of the gates, and some take a little longer, and it might be the pair bond,
Mhm.
But yeah, we've definitely seen that with some of the big Sur birds that started nesting early on. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a
Nice.
great shot.
Yeah. Yeah, we just checked on that nest. We just did nest entry yesterday, and that egg is fertile and viable and alive and healthy.
Ooh.
569 was watching behind, watching everything, was there the entire time, being a good mom, but didn't interfere, didn't hurt any humans or anything. But yeah, that nest is going along great. And this is the 4th time in a row every year they've had tried. So it's exciting. They're our
Yeah, they are
superstar
super.
couple.
Yeah, they're a super productive pair, kind of like 340 and 236, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what an amazing shot.
And yeah, that was the most exciting thing so far is we went in for a nest entry to install a camera so we could watch the chick being born, but Gavin rappelled down during the nest entry, called us on the radio and was like, "Hey, there's a nestling in there. The egg already hatched." It was a great
Oops.
surprise. And he got some amazing photos. You can still see the little egg tooth on its beak. So it was like very fresh, a couple of days old. And yeah, what a surprise.
I could just
But
stare
a
at that
great
photo for an
surprise.
hour. That is amazing detail. I mean, look at that.
Yeah.
And just look at the
Yeah.
expression on, is that, if that's 868 or 931?
Yeah. That's 868.
Yeah, God, you can just, if a face could speak 1,000 words, that face could. That's awesome. Yeah, what an incredible shot. Yeah, Gavin over the years has just blown my mind with some of his photos.
Yeah. It's amazing. And yeah, the color of his face. Yeah.
Another one. Look at this.
Mhm.
I love how it's kind of protecting the chick, kind of definitely
Yeah.
curious with you guys.
Yeah. Gavin said he could hear like 868 kind of hiss and make some noise while he was rappelling down. And it makes sense why he was trying to be all tough and brave to protect his little chick.
That's what you want. Yeah. I mean, they're probably fending off ravens and, who knows what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful photo.
Yeah. It's very exciting. And this is also very exciting.
Oh, yeah, the 2-egg.
Yeah. Yeah. I went up there. We confirmed that they were indeed nesting, and we thought it would be the trio with them 3, 888, 89, and 913. And I went up there, and 913 luckily got up right as I was there and showed the 2 eggs, which is wild. I think the first in Central California, definitely the first in Pinnacles. And yeah, unfortunately, one of them did get crushed in some way. They did a nest entry a couple days later and found one of them to be crushed, but one of them is still going along. We had a volunteer out there today and said it was going good. And 889 was on the nest all day, just sitting there doing
Yeah,
its
because you went
duty.
in and candled the other egg, right? And it was early, but it looked like it was the early stages of a fertile egg.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we
Only
did
like
have
5 days old.
speaking of that, we did have a double egg nest in Big Sur years ago. It involved 317,
Nice.
171, and the male 242 they were with. Unfortunately, he passed away from lead poisoning while they were in the middle of nesting. And we were able to pull those 2 eggs. They were both infertile, and brought in a foster egg, and the 2 females raised that chick. So that was one of the early days when we were still swapping out eggs and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's pretty rare. It's super rare.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
pretty crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like, and God, I mean, we've had really good success with trios in general, in terms of raising chicks. They tend to do really well. So yeah, I think it's cool, just to see the birds adapt and go, okay, well, we got 1 egg.
Yeah, and both females, we're not sure which female the egg is, and both females seem to be incubating just fine and acting like it's their own. So that's great to see too.
Yeah, that'd be fun if when the chick hits fledging and we finally get a hold of it, we can send a blood sample in for DNA.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
fun. We can figure out
Hmm.
who's the real. Yeah, that'd be our have to place bets on that one.
Yeah.
You had to guess,
Yeah.
who do you think?
I think 913,
Okay,
but I'm not
she
sure.
was just in Big Sur actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Oh, what a beautiful shot.
I know. They're both, this is the first time any of them have nested, but they're doing a really good job incubating and defending their egg, it seems like.
So this is an interesting, I mean, going back to that last photo, even for you, I mean, for a cave nest, this is, I mean, the first thing you look at is like, there's quite a slope there.
Yeah.
So is that egg, are those eggs just gonna roll down the hill or?
I think it's deceptively.
Oh, you froze up. I think you might come back, hang on. Yeah, because this photo, it looks a little flatter.
I could chime in while she's frozen. Because I
Oh,
have
you're back,
monitored
Kaitlin.
that nest as well. And it
Yeah.
is deceptive. It looks very deceptively from the photos. It looks very slanted, but there are very level parts of it, and it looks like the egg is in one of the really nice level parts of it. Yeah, sorry, Kaitlin, are you back?
Yeah. Sorry, the internet is not
Yeah.
the best.
But yeah, in this photo, you can see it looks a lot flatter. But yeah, I remember when you sent that first photo to everyone to say, hey, we got 2 eggs. Everyone's like, oh my God, it looks like they're gonna roll right out.
This pair has not used that cavity before, but other pairs have in the past and have been successful there. So high hopes.
That's awesome. Beautiful shot again by Gavin.
I know, right?
Speaking of which, Danaé, you grab these shots.
Yeah, I was nerding out about this earlier this week. I was watching video from our Big Sur cam, and I saw that there was 4 Pinnacles females all present at the same time on the slope, including some of these birds. Like Kaitlin, you were saying 726 never leaves the park. Well, she did this week. But she really doesn't. I mean, I don't even know if I've ever seen her before out on the coast prior to this photo. And 747 is hardly ever out there. And then similar with 913 and 931 on the right there in that photo. So it was really cool just to see them all there at the same time. Little mom's retreat out on the coast, taking a break from nest watching, which is pretty cool. And then it was funny because that same day, all of our Big Sur nests, all the males were at the site. So our Pinnacles and Big Sur birds are flip-flopped. When it's mom day at Pinnacles, it's dad day in Big Sur. So I thought that was hilarious. And yeah, they all got along with all the Big Sur birds. They were definitely holding their own as very dominant females, and no one was messing around with them too much. I think they, especially because they were all together too, they kind of hung out together as well. It was really, really cute to see them all.
Yeah, and stick around, Kaitlin. We're gonna have questions here pretty quick. So volunteer.
Yeah, and then this week is Volunteer Appreciation Week. So I wanted to give a huge shout out to all of our volunteers, both our Explorer Cam viewers and our volunteer trackers, Condor trackers. They've still been out tracking condors, even though the highway is closed. They're still getting out there and helping us keep track of the flock. So I want to give them all a huge shout out. Some of them are actually here in the conference room with us right now. So big shout out to them. They have been invaluable, especially with all these nests that we were trying to confirm. They've been really invaluable just helping us pick up signals. We've had a lot of birds that have gone missing that our volunteers have then found when they've been out on the coast or inland. So they're really, really a crucial part of the crew. And I just want to give them all a huge shout out. They're not only putting in a lot of hours, but they're all just so dedicated, so passionate, and just as enthusiastic as many of you viewers right now about condors. They care very deeply about these birds, just like you all do. And so it's really, really a privilege to work with all of them. I'm very honored.
You're here. I second that. It's awesome. So big thank you, volunteers. Yeah, and back to SPCA, they came in, saved the day, and helped out with that too. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's get to questions here. Mike, you've been on standby there, kind of, queuing us up.
Yes, Kaitlin, thanks for joining us. A question from the viewers. Do you have a playbook for these nests that might occur on private property? And maybe this is a situation that you haven't come across too much, but do you contact the landowners? What is their reaction to having condors on their property? Are there instances where you might work with the landowner to monitor the nests, or is it a case-by-case basis? Can you elaborate on any potential relationships there with the private landowners who are hosting these California condors?
Yeah, it's a bit more case by case. Unfortunately, the 317, 330 nest doesn't seem like the area, they don't seem very friendly to condors or willing to let us go on their private property. 747 and 800s maybe is a little more willing. It's just in the middle of nowhere and it's really hard to get to. So that'll be, but it's a case by case basis. We usually try not to intervene or tell the private property owners until there's like a potential fledgling. Sometimes there's issues with that, with them, because fledglings don't know the best places to roost and the best places to land. So sometimes we will give outreach to them. But usually it's pretty hands off, letting them do what they do naturally in the wild and not really intervening or telling the private property owners that there are condor nests on their property.
And the condors are rather self-sufficient in terms of how successful they can be nesting on their own. As far as the landowner reaction, what has been some of the reactions once you've told them about a condor nest on their property? Are they kind of excited? Or are they interested? Or what's their usual reaction to having something like this?
I personally have not interacted with that many private property owners that have had nests on their property. From the past, what I've been told and what I've gathered is that they're usually ambivalent. Like they usually like, oh, cool. If it doesn't affect them in any way, they're pretty for it. Yeah, I would say there's not been a negative or a positive reaction. They're just kind of like, oh, okay.
I think we'll see probably a huge range in reactions as we keep having these situations, hopefully a lot in future years where the condors spread out in their nesting. A lot of interest from viewers in seeing condors on their own, whether it's at Pinnacles or at Big Sur. I would certainly recommend Pinnacles right now with the road slip out at Big Sur, but I'll throw this to Darren and Danaé. Could you give us some tips on viewing condors? Now, last month I was able to see some king vultures, and I just mentioned that just to brag a little bit. But the tips I would share for king vultures is just to be in the right place at the right time. Now, for condors, is there anything that you can suggest that would improve your luck at seeing condors? Maybe time of day, areas to look, and maybe some tips that you can share with people that are in the condor range.
Yeah, I think just like to kind of address the time of day sort of question you brought up there, and along with some other like places to look for. I mean, condors are most active in like the middle of the day and then in the afternoon. They like to warm up a bit and like for the landscape to warm up a bit, so there's more thermal activity going on and it's easier for them to take off and soar around and travel around. So really like middle of the day and afternoon are the best times of day to go and look for them. And then in terms of places, like really like, I mean, like Pinnacles National Park, Big Sur, these areas with a lot of topographic variability, like really high mountains and steep valleys and canyons and things. I mean, again, that's all really good for condors and where they want to perch, where they want to hang out and take off and land from. So those areas are really good. We actually just had someone see one of the condors that we released from San Simeon a couple of years ago, flew down to Bishop Peak in San Luis Obispo and was soaring over the trails down there. So yeah, they're popping up in places and that they're not always so common. But yeah, any areas with mountains sort of in this Central California range that we cover, I would say check those out, and if you're trying to see them.
Yeah, I
And
would
I-
say especially at Pinnacles too, the High Peaks Trail in Pinnacles National Park is probably, and Kaitlin can chime in too, but at least when I was there, that was kind of the best place to see condors because they will occasionally roost at night up there too. So if you get up there early in the morning, you might still see them hanging out before they take off for the day, or similarly in the evenings when they come in to roost at night. So if you're up there, I would be shocked if you go up to the high peaks and you spend all day up there. I'd be shocked if you didn't see a condor, especially this time of year. Winter time, early spring is a good time of year for Pinnacles, especially with the highway closed. That's probably your best bet. But Kaitlin, if you have any thoughts, feel free to chime in.
No, yeah, that's the best place. I think every time Tim goes up there to take amazing pictures, he always sees a bunch of birds. So yeah, do you like Tim? And
And,
Yeah.
and speaking of Tim, we have votes from our viewers to get Tim on one of these Condor chats to talk about Condor photography. We hear you. We'll work on that.
And right on cue, Mike, I got queued up one of Tim's amazing pictures.
Okay, great. And also the viewers are noting that a condor was photographed on Bishop Peak, which is right near San Luis Obispo. And so that's kind of interesting. We think of, being in the wilderness, but if you're in the city of San Luis Obispo, you have hopes too of seeing condors. And so it's exciting to see them branching out and venturing into new places that we might be able to see these birds in the areas that we live. And so that's pretty exciting. Kaitlin, you've been a number of years now at Pinnacles, and you're seeing some of these birds year after year and seeing new nesting pairs. Kim in Los Angeles is interested in the social hierarchy of birds. What determines how you rise up through the ranks and perhaps get one of these nesting territories or a position as one of the nesting birds? Is it age? Is it gender? Is it attitude? What do you think is involved with a condor rising up in the social hierarchy?
Yeah, interesting question. I will speak for Pinnacles birds, and Danaé and Darren can chime in about the Ventana birds and what they see on the coast. But the Pinnacles birds, usually the very dominant, very territorial, very big males are the ones that win over territories and kind of defend their own territories. Yeah, we have some males in the 900 range that are starting to work their way up. This year, they were displaying like crazy, trying to find the female that'll just mate with them, just pair with them, but not quite yet making a territory of their own. So it'll be interesting to see when they get into that like hierarchy status, when they get a pair, when they get a female, how long it'll take. But like 868 kind of surprised us this year. We didn't think beforehand he was with 827 always, which is another male, just always with that male. And then for some reason 931 and 868 have been inseparable ever since they started nesting and have just been this strong pair. It was kind of a surprise. We thought more of the 912 900 birds would kind of take over 931. It just depends. I feel like the dominant big males like 340, 569, or 589, and 888 are all pretty large males. You can definitely tell they're bigger than other birds, and they've done well to defend themselves against other birds. But yeah, Danaé and Darren can chime in on what they see on the coast.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty similar with what we see on the coast with our birds. Is typically the older males kind of hold down a territory, and then once they've established that territory, they work pretty hard to defend it. And if the right female comes along and she decides it looks pretty good for nesting territory, she'll kind of set up shop there. But yeah, it's pretty interesting this year with so many new pairs on the market this year, and then also some of our missing birds that we had go missing last year. We had a lot of pairs kind of reshuffling and switching things up. So it's pretty cool. Like one that comes to mind is 209, who's a really old dominant male who's now nesting with 881, who's a really young female who's never nested before. And I think part of the reason we're seeing these kind of younger birds nesting now is just because of our sex ratio skew in the population, with about 2-to-1 ratio males to females. So we have a lot of available breeding males, but not a lot of available females for those males. So like Kaitlin was saying, a lot of these younger 900 males are trying to establish their dominance and trying to set up shop, but there's really just not a lot of available females. And the females that are around, like 931 and 881, are going for the older males and more experienced males sometimes too. So yeah, I think it's tough out there for our young male condors for sure. But yeah, it's always really interesting dynamics to watch. I feel like this year especially, there was just so much displaying and so much potential mating behavior. Birds were really putting themselves out there on the market this season and really trying to impress a lot of the other eligible bachelors and bachelorettes in the population. So it was a really entertaining breeding season for sure.
Mhm. And Danaé, I enjoyed earlier this week getting out and you showing me the pens at the SPCA, and they look immaculate, so clean, brand new. And a question is, have you seen any instances of bumblefoot? Now, in those pens there, that seems like a great place to spend 21 days while you're waiting for your next vaccination, and it looks so clean. But as far as your work with condors, have you ever seen any instances where you've seen bumblefoot or any kind of thing like that on the feet of condors being held in captivity?
I have not personally, just for many of our birds that have been captive, like the San Simeon birds or the SPCA birds. Typically, that's kind of something you see in passerine species, so songbird species that spend a lot of time on the ground, from what I'm remembering from bird banding. But it is not something that, I don't know if it's ever been documented in condors, to be honest. Maybe Joe could jump in, and if he knows.
They're really
anything.
rare. Really
Yeah.
rare. Yeah, raptors can fall victim to it, and like you said, passerines. But with condors, it has been documented, but it's very, very rare. And it's usually a situation where the bird was on the ground for an extended period because it was sick from something else.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot in tricolored blackbirds, flocking species that spend a lot of time on the ground, and again, a passerine.
And that's why we give them the perching we do in the SPCA pens. It's what we've learned over the years. It works really well. It drains well. They're up off the ground. That's huge.
Yeah, I would say all of our SPCA birds prefer the perches. They spend almost all their time up on the perches, and they go down to drink water and eat their food. But as soon as they're done, they're back up on the perch preening and napping and stuff. So they're not spending a ton of time on the ground of those pens.
Yeah, and condors' feet are, versus other birds, are really developed, in terms of like raptors. You're comparing them with raptors, are really developed for walking on the ground more, for having to navigate carcasses and getting around. So I think their feet are a little tougher on that side of being able to tolerate stuff that might affect other birds. So it's definitely something. They look, their feet look pretty formidable, but they're actually, like, even in this photo of Tim's, you can see the claws, and they look talon-like, but they're really not. But
Right.
yeah, they're really developed for gripping and walking around on rocks and the ground.
I was mesmerized by the feet of that condor in Gavin's photo. I know everyone was looking at all the colors and the detail, but those feet, the size of those toes, just incredible to see up close like that. one question that I want to get to from Richard. Joe, you mentioned that 1085 had no lead fragments. Richard would like to know what would have been the source of contamination or the source of lead exposure if you didn't find any lead fragments.
If we don't find lead fragments, we typically assume that the lead fragments have already moved through the digestive tract of the condor, and basically what's remained behind is this blood, this lead in the blood from that exposure. So we think it's already been excreted. And the scary part is if they aren't able to move that lead through, and they get such an exposure, so many fragments that it freezes up their digestive tract, and then that lead just sits in their digestive tract until they die. So it's kind of, it's bittersweet when it at least got through, but they still have this residual blood lead level. And we try it, and any lead level above, for humans, it's any lead in the bloodstream at all is not acceptable. So obviously when we have an opportunity to get that lead level down in the blood and chelate the birds, we take advantage of that. And that's why this bird was sent up to Oakland Zoo to get that treatment.
And Joe, I've heard you describe the size of lead fragments being like fingernail clipping size. And I imagine there's a huge range for that. I think the fragments can even be smaller. I think of the fragments that I see from a lead bullet that you see from a gel when you do a demonstration and shoot a lead bullet into a gel, it fragments into so many of those little tiny, hardly visible fragments. And so I think those fragments can vary in size, some of them being very small. And like you said, they can pass and still be absorbed into the blood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost dust particle size. Yeah.
We're in the migration season, and Cornell puts out these alerts of many birds moving through. It's kind of exciting to see. They can actually predict migration movements, mostly songbirds, birds that are smaller than condors, and of course, birds that are migrating. And they're moving through now in very large numbers. Does this movement of birds present any concerns for condors, perhaps related to the likelihood of getting HPAI?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the main times of year that we're worried, during the peak migration periods. Yeah, we just had a meeting today, and Arizona is past that peak migration, so they feel like they're in the clear, whereas we're just, based on what you just said, we're right in the thick of it. So yeah, right now we're on the watch. So it's more important than ever that we're doing what we're doing and trying to expedite things. But yeah, and honestly, I mean, even outside of the migration, it's obviously heightened during migration, but we know HPAI, avian influenza is very crafty and can get around even in times when you're not expecting it. So we're playing it like it could happen anytime.
And so far, the no news is good news is holding up, and all of your efforts and the crew's efforts to be prepared for this is really making us feel a little easier about the situation. And we look forward to our next update to see if there are any new developments on that. As far as my calendar looks, it looks like we're looking at circling May 30th as our next
yes, sir.
Our next update, our next Condor chat, and we look forward to joining you then. We thank the 167 viewers who joined us today from really all corners of the US and beyond. I saw someone from Ontario, and I think there were a couple of other international guests as well. So thank you so much. Thank you to Kaitlin for joining us and for all of your work monitoring those nests in Pinnacles. So excited to see so many nests and keeping our fingers crossed for a great nesting season this year. Joe, I'll throw it back to you for goodbyes and see you next time.
Well, you did a great job there, Mike. I don't have much more to add. Yeah, just thank you, Kaitlin, and thank you to the Pinnacles crew. You're so critical to everything we do here in Central California. We couldn't do it without you. And yeah, just send on the high fives to the rest of the crew. And thank you for joining us today. As always, it's always great to hear directly from you guys about what's happening over there. And yeah, get out to Pinnacles, folks. It's an amazing spot. Get up to High Peaks. Great spot to Condor watch. And you might even run into Kaitlin out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Yeah, we'll have you guys back. This season is a long one, so we're just in the thick of it. Thank you, Darren, Danaé, and to our amazing volunteers who are here today. Yeah, thank you, everyone, and see you next time.